That is what we had in this country for several decades in the post-World War.
Why do you think that's good, though? Because we talked about this. Why do you think that's good?
I'll tell you. Because it flattens wealth disparity.
Okay.
And that is when you have the greatest expansion of the economy.
Right.
When
all right.
It didn't flatten wealth disparities. That's a lie. It's a total lie. And by the way, they still weren't paying the shit, right? Like they still weren't paying the shit. And like ultimately, Seder really seems to think he had something there because we watched an off clip where I was giving a postulation about if you had an actual 90% tax on people's wages or something like this. And instead, he moved it over to graduated tiers, but his plan still fucking sucks. Then
Andrew Wilson completely roasts Sam Seder after Sam Seder's disastrous PBD appearance. Sam Seder the other day went on the PBD podcast, making more of his patented absurd claims about the economy and about his 90% marginal tax. And Andrew Wilson is here to absolutely roast him for it. Let's see what Andrew Wilson had to say about Sam Seder's PBD appearance on the Not One Step Back podcast.
This video from Sam Seder, our boy Sam Seder. He is on PBD Podcast.
I thought he was so smart. He was so smart. He was going to debate everybody. Yeah. I noticed that he got destroyed real bad here.
He's the smartest. He's the absolute smartest. And he said that, I don't know what happened to Andrew. Like I can hear crickets in my ears right now, but he said that he was going to come on Not One Step Back and he was going to educate us or he was going to debate you. So it's just, I mean, Sam.
And then he didn't.
Yeah. Anyways, here, like, let's give him, like, let's be as charitable as possible here because maybe he didn't think that our last video, maybe we didn't cover it properly, but here's him saying exactly what he means by his 90% tax policy, and he maybe gives a little jab in the side of the ribs to us here, or to you particularly. Let's have a listen.
I think is a fundamental problem that we have in this country. I think too much of what happens in this country is a function of the concentration of wealth. I mean, that gets back to why I want to return back to the tax regime we had in the 50s and the 60s, where the top marginal rate was 90% for every dollar above what today's money would be about $4 million. So, and just to explain this, because I've seen so many people on the right not understand marginal tax rates that it's almost disturbing. The first $1 million that you earn is taxed at 32% or whatever the prevailing rate is. The second $1 million you earn, 32%. The third, 32%, because I think that's the highest. Maybe it's 37% is the highest. Once you get over 4 million, every extra dollar after that is taxed at a 90% rate.
That's what you want.
That is what we had in this country for several decades in the post-World War.
Why do you think that's good, though? Because we talked about this. Why do you think that's good?
I'll tell you. Because it flattens wealth disparity.
Okay.
And that is when you have the greatest expansion of the economy.
Right.
When
all right.
It didn't flatten wealth disparities. That's a lie. It's a total lie. And by the way, they still weren't paying the shit, right? Like they still weren't paying the shit. And like ultimately, Seder really seems to think he had something there because we watched an off clip where I was giving a postulation about if you had an actual 90% tax on people's wages or something like this. And instead, he moved it over to graduated tiers, but his plan still fucking sucks. Then you still would run into the same exact problem. So what incentive do people have after 4 million to make more than $4 million? Well, they don't have fucking any incentive to do it. You're going to take 90% of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely right. Listen, all the Sam Seder and all his Seder Knights out there had a field day going, oh, they don't know how marginal tax works. And even in my video where I said, okay, yeah, fine, I got it. I thought he was talking about a flat tax. Turns out it was a marginal tax. Yeah, fine. It's still just not going to work. Like, they thought that by correcting, like, oh, actually, it's a marginal tax, chud. Like, oh, okay, all of a sudden, it's going to make a 90% tax on anything past $4 million. Now it's going to work because now that you've explained that it's a marginal tax, it's going to work now. And I'm an idiot for misunderstanding. Yeah, no. As Andrew's pointing out, yeah, you're still going to run into the same problem. It's not going to incentivize anyone to want to work harder. No one wants to work hard and give up most of their money to the government or anybody.
It's the same. It's just the same fucking problem. I don't see how this is better. I don't see how this is better.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems so ridiculous because he's sitting across from a guy like Patrick Bet-David. Obviously, Patrick Bet-David has made like 100 million or whatever. Like, what incentive do these people actually have? And it seems like a basic argument, just the basic sort of incentive argument. But, you know, some people are just really motivated by money. And sometimes these are the most productive people in our economy who really build things. And if you're looking to have a strong economy, you need to actually build things, right? It can't just be like what Sam Seder is saying, with everybody being kept down all the time with the 90% tax rates. So, like, do people actually have any incentive in that environment?
No, I don't think they do. I don't think that if you raise, I mean, whatever the threshold is, whether it's 4 million, 3 million, 2 million, 500,000, with the second you hit we're going to take 90% of every new dollar made once you hit that threshold, you're basically disincentivizing people from ever making anything over that threshold, or ever at least reporting that they made anything over that threshold. They're going to hide their money. They're going to do everything that they possibly can. It's a terrible idea. It's always been a terrible idea. And again, I'm happy to debate Seder on all of the reasons why. We can dive into it, especially how the taxes worked at the time. I'm actually happy to do that. I don't know where he is, though. He seems to never be around after he issues these challenges, interestingly enough.
Yeah, it's funny. Sam Seder is the one that issued the challenge, and yet he backed down from it. Andrew Wilson said he'd be willing to cover the costs, all these things. Andrew Wilson accepted the challenge. Now, then it was only a matter of time of setting up the time and place. But Sam Seder, he's so confident in this, yet he's not willing to debate it. Instead, he'd rather just take the easy route on people who misunderstood him, calling them idiots. But then when we come back with the argument, yeah, okay, a marginal tax is still not a good idea, he's not willing to debate it. But he's still going on PBD and stuff like that, touting this idea. Even though it's been debunked. Even in my video, I debunked it, saying, yeah, no one paid that 90% tax. No one paid that at that time. They found ways to avoid paying it. Because once again, people are not going to work hard to make all that money to give most of it away.
Yeah. I mean, economics isn't my strong suit, but I just think that that's such a stupid perspective. Like, to have 90%, and people are just going to completely reject that. And we talked about this last time in terms of the future of the left, right? If the left actually wanted to make a resurgence, it's just not going to be through that, because people don't want to give 90% of their money to a giant bureaucracy where they're just wasting money all the time, and there's just so much fraud and abuse going on, and we've uncovered that recently. And there's no doubt that the government as it stands in America is just made up of all of these freaking insufferable bureaucrats. Like, no, thank you. People want to make shit. People want to reinvest their money into their businesses.
Yeah, but what about wealth inequality? What about my wealth inequality? What about the fact that there's so many people who live with so little, and there's so few people who live with so much? What about that? Don't you want to change that, Jake? Don't you want to kind of redistribute it a little bit so it's a little bit more fair for everybody? Right?
Yeah, but I think that Trump actually might do a better job of that than any of these leftist ideas, because if you want to address wealth inequality, then you have to address things like manufacturing and having good jobs for people who do manufacturing, rather than having all of the money siphoned out into this sort of like financial and like real estate and insurance class that the American money, and the stock market class that American money currently sits in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also too, like, if you want to talk about wealth inequality, well, what better way to address wealth inequality than by giving them some kind of incentive or hope? And one thing that motivates people, if they see a Donald Trump, someone who became a billionaire, people see that and be like, well, I want to be like Donald Trump. That's why so many rappers used to put Donald Trump in rap songs as something to aspire to. But if you tell people, well, no, actually, you can't be like Donald Trump. Actually, we're going to cap you at this amount. well, what incentive is that for people to want to work any harder? You know, it's the sky's the limit, not 4 million's the limit.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Honestly, I don't. Look, you can't do anything ultimately about this idea of wealth inequality anyway, because the truth is that you have to bake into the pie this liberal idea that there's just not a ton of really lazy fucking people who just don't want to do shit, and a ton of people who don't do anything to improve their life and go out of their way not to improve their life. There's more millionaires right this second in the United States there ever has been, right? I think it was something ridiculous when I looked it up. It was like 30 million millionaires live here, right? It's a ton. That's a ton of millionaires. Now, a lot of them get there because they, just invest in an IRA, 401k, and they work 40 years of their life, and they end up with $1 million to retire on, plus their Social Security, right? They did everything the right way. But there's other people who make millions of dollars through industry. There's other people who make millions of dollars with good ideas. There's people who make millions of dollars who stream, right? There's lots of different ways to get there, but baked into this pie, the wealth inequality pie, it's always been the same exact thing, which is you're really banking on the fact that for some reason I would be incentivized to give you my fucking money, and I'm not. I don't have incentives to do that, especially if you're going to take it from me. I have incentives to hide it. I have incentives to bury it. I have incentives to, take losses on it. I have incentives to do anything I can to play the system so that I can keep what's mine. You're not assisting anybody by doing this.
Yeah. I don't help me connect these dots though, right? Because with Trump's tariffs, for example, the idea is to get manufacturing back in America, because in order to have a strong, thriving economy, you need obviously a labor market, and you need to build shit. In order to have a strong GDP, you need to be making things. And your GDP and the stock market could be going like graph go up, but it could be, like I said, from this big financial class and the insurance class, etc., rather than actually having like proper capital or proper manufacturing and industry in your country. So if the idea is to bring that back, and if all of these like liberal elites and even these conservative elites are getting so mad about this tariff policy, doesn't that signify that the people who are really, really mad about this are the ones from that sort of bureaucratic financial class, and that the people who are being looked out for here are going to be the working class and the people who actually make things, and then that could in some way reduce this wealth disparity that we do see?
Well, so let's untangle a few things, right? The answer is yes, that will actually assist with that. But, the last episode or 2 episodes ago when we were talking about this, I had kind of put on the table, I'm not exactly sure what the strategy is here with why it is that they're putting tariffs on Canada and Mexico when they're putting tariffs on these other nations in order to apparently get them to drop their tariffs, when the idea I thought was against free trade to begin with. Well, I dove into what Trump's plan is, what his advisor's plan is with the tariffs. The reason they put those tariffs on Canada and on Mexico is so that there wasn't a back door to the other places that we were tariffing. So what would happen is, like China, for instance, is buying up huge swaths of land in Canada. This is a well-known secret, right? They're buying up huge swaths of land in Canada, and they want to have proxy companies there. Now, if the proxy companies in Canada, and let's say the Canadian government does not have high tariffs on China, they want to kind of freely trade with them. Well, then if the Chinese in Canada can import the goods for next to nothing, and then we have free trade with Canada here in the United States, this is a way for China to avoid the tariff altogether, isn't it? Or to avoid the mass majority of it and to continue to hurt our economy by using a backdoor to it. So the idea here is that this also gives a disincentive to Canada and to Mexico from doing business with these places as well. So actually, this is a really good idea. Also with tariffs, people often forget the fact that they always say, well, prices for your goods are going to go up. Well, that's not only true, but it doesn't even make sense. If it is the case that the Chinese make some fucking shitty knapsack, let's say, some shitty backpack of some kind, okay, and they're selling it for $14, okay, and people are buying it for $14. The leftists are screaming that backpack's going to go up to $25, okay? Okay, but what if nobody fucking buys it? What if nobody will buy it at $25 because it's a cheap piece of Chinese garbage, right? And they have competitors at that price who are going to have a much higher quality product. Well, these companies are actually incentivized to keep their prices lower so that they can still compete in the market, right? It's a great way to level the playing field. So all the doom and gloom and screeching about prices going up, that might not even be the case for most of these goods. It might not even be the case for most of them. And there's really no other way for us to compete with foreign labor where you're paying them nickels on the dollar that we pay our laborers, except to use these protectionist tariffs. That's what the goal is. And to incentivize our industry to come back here, you might as well be back on home base. If you're going to have the same types of taxes for doing business, you might as well live in the first world nation rather than Vietnam, right? And it does incentivize corporations and companies to come back. And we've seen this already. We won the first trade war with China. It did way more damage to them than it did to us and is going to again. And we know it's going to because they need access to our markets. We don't need access to theirs. What things from China can you not live without, Jake? What things?
Very excellent points from Andrew Wilson, dropping economic truth bombs better than Sam Seder ever could. What do you think about this so far? Sound off in the comment section below. Smash that like button if you're enjoying this. Let's continue.
I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I'm sure that there would be some sort of... I actually don't know. Like, what can they make that we can't make? Like,
or that we can't source elsewhere, right? Or that people in their garage won't start making when there's a need for it.
Maybe like solar panels that eventually get ditched.
Like, I mean, we have companies that make solar panels. So, I mean, ultimately what I'm saying is like, we can easily win these trade wars, and we're going to. Like, we're going to win them because they can't really do shit about it. They need the access to this market. All of China is set up to sell cheap fucking goods that they rip the designs off of U.S. manufacturers to begin with. They rip them off completely, which is illegal as hell, but they don't care. They don't adhere to what any world court says about it, and you can't sue them. So they get your draft designs, and then they go ahead and they make a cheaper, shittier version of it, and they sell it for next to nothing. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's already ripping us off. But on top of that, there's no good incentives for us to even allow this cheap Chinese shit to be coming into our nation to begin with. We don't even need to allow it to come in. And if it's going to hurt them to keep the prices low enough that you will buy their stuff, that's also good for us, right? Because now it hurts their businesses, and we still get the same goods at the same price. This idea that like, oh, Americans are always just going to pay whatever the fucking price is of this cheap garbage that China wants. Like, no, we're not. Why did you ever think we were? Of course we're not. It's actually an incentive for them to come to the table very quickly. And Trump, he left a huge amount of room for upping the tariffs on these nations. So he's like, you can come to the table now, or we can just kind of slowly up it. And he has, under the law, the right to increase tariffs drastically, basically as much as he wants. And there's not a damn thing anybody can do about it, and he's doing it.
Yeah, the argument that we're seeing from people like Cenk Uygur and the leftists, and basically these screeching financial people on CNN and MSNBC are saying, oh, this is going to hurt the little guy so much, and Trump is basically just trying to give a big tax cut to corporations. But I just don't see it that way, because if you just look at it like philosophically, if you're a government, the way that you should be doing things is to incentivize people to make things in America, and not incentivizing people to actually build up the resources and the capital in places like China, and then having it come back into America through this sort of middleman financial class. So it just makes total sense to me. And do you think that these leftists, they don't see it, that actually don't understand it?
They only hate it because it's Trump who's doing it.
Or just an orange man bad thing.
They hated it when Trump had tons of tariffs on China, but when it came time for Biden to drop the tariffs and he didn't, they fully supported it. We need those tariffs, you see. It's just when Trump does it. Everybody sees that it's a massive ripoff, the amount of deficit we have in trade with these other countries. And the fact is, they want free trade with countries that tariff our goods. That's the truth. Why would you want free trade with, and when you say some things as stupid as I hear leftists saying now all over the place, oh, tariffs really hurt the working class. Tariffs actually are harmful to the nation. Why the fuck aren't all these other nations getting rid of their tariffs then?
Yes, exactly.
How come they don't get rid of them? They must. Are they just all really, really, really stupid? Or could there be another explanation? Like, oh, I don't know. They raise a shitload of money and they're able to weaken the United States at the same time that they collect revenue and duties off of the things that we want to import in their nation. It's like, but we were not allowed to do the same thing because the price of, you know, your fucking cheap Chinese laptop is going to go up by $30. It's like, fuck you. You know, fuck off.
The only people I see...
We want to incentivize. We have the stark choice. We have the choice. Trump told us he was going to do this. All right. We knew that there was going to be some pain with it, but we're looking at the long-term goals. And the long-term goals is that we want industry back in the United States. And we were willing to take that risk. And he was mandated to do this. The American people gave him a mandate. He got the popular vote, right? He crushed the blue wall. He got swept into office. The American people had the decision to say, no, we don't want to go this route. But we overwhelmingly said we do want to go this route. We want industry here. And if that means that we have kind of a brutal trade war, well, we're in it to win it.
Yeah.
Very well said by Andrew Wilson. And it's funny, too, because the leftists, they want to talk about the little man, the working man. But the thing they're screeching about, like one thing they're screeching about is like the Nintendo Switch is going to go up, the price. They were screeching about that. My Nintendo Switch. Oh, yeah, because that's what the working man is really concerned about. My Nintendo Switch. Listen, I love video games. I love my Nintendo Switch, and I'm looking forward to when the Switch 2 comes out. But listen, I'd rather much be able to afford my groceries than the new Nintendo Switch. I could do without the Nintendo Switch, at least for a few months, at least for a little bit. And it's not even just the Switch. It's like other expensive goods. Like I saw them talking about like an expensive car. I forgot which one, but it was like an expensive car. And it's like, oh yeah, that's something the working man is really concerned about. Expensive car. But Andrew Wilson hit it right on the head. It's just whenever Trump does it, that's all it comes down to. It could just boil right down to Orange Man bad. It's bad when Orange Man does it, but whenever the Democrats do it, it's good. You know, none of these leftists or Democrats or what have you, none of them cared when Joe Biden and the Democrats were ruining our economy and making prices go up. None of them cared about it then. But as soon as the second that Donald Trump stepped into office, all of a sudden it was my economy, but my tariffs are gonna ruin the economy. My economy. All of a sudden, then their concerns went to the economy. All of a sudden, it flipped like a switch. Once again, why should we take these people seriously? Great job by Andrew Wilson and Jake Rattlesnake. This is from their Not One Step Back podcast. I urge you to subscribe to their channel. On the topic of Sam Seder, though, do you think he'll ever accept Andrew Wilson's debate? I don't think so. But what do you guys think? Sound off in the comment section below. Subscribe to my channel if you really enjoyed this. And if you did enjoy it, if you like seeing Andrew Wilson or Jake Rattlesnake, I got debates featuring both of them and a bunch more content very similar to that on my channel that you could watch and enjoy.